right, everybody, it's the Southern Ontario Dirt Show with Jonathon Howe and Travis Cunningham, episode 12. Travis, who is the first 12 in your mind when you think of Southern Ontario dirt racing?
Oh yeah, now that I'm not on the spot like last week and didn't think of Jamie Turner like a ding dong, Chad Chevalier for me.
Nice. How about Darren Dryden as well in the crates?
Correct. Another great number 12
Uh,
that's had a lot of good success this year. Yep.
yeah, he's easy to keep on the brain because he's just been off to such a hot start to the year in 2022. Good bunch of racing from Ohsweken and Merrittville Speedway. Let's start with Ohsweken. Tell us about your night on Friday.
Yeah, my night was definitely nothing to talk about. Just had a bad heat, and then the feature wasn't going good, so I pulled off. But my buddy and another guest of the podcast, Mikey Kretschka, picked up the win, and super pumped for him. And I got to watch his last couple laps there, and just a slick track driving clinic.
Nice. Yeah, I was really worried that we gave our first real jinx of the podcast to Mikey because I think in the immediate week following, it was all because I asked him that question. I asked him what his plans were for those 4 races in 8 days or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, well, you know." And then I think the very first race he got wrecked, tore the car up pretty good at Ohsweken, and then I think he came back. I think he made it back out for another one, and then had something go wrong. I can't remember what the incident was.
Humberstone, he was
Yes,
running, I think, third or fourth, and then the brake rotor exploded. Yeah,
right.
rough.
Yeah. So I
But
was like, oh,
then he's been
that's
seventh in the national since then, and then his win.
yeah, exactly. So now he's kind of back to fine form. So now I don't feel so bad. I don't feel guilty at all about that. So Mikey Kretschka wins the Cool Kids Core Pack 360 sprints at Ohsweken. Wins it over Ryan Turner and Mac the Man. Another solid run for Mac.
Yep. He kicked my butt in the heat race. I think he won the heat by a mile. And he got by Mike at the beginning of the race a little bit, and then Mike was able to get back by him, just rolling the middle and stuff. But Mac was able to hold on to second with Ryan Turner ran out his butt, who was 10 grand richer. So good job to Mac to hold off Ryan, who's been super hot. And yeah, picked up second there, and Mac likes a little bit more of a cushion, so if we can get that for him, guarantee you he'll probably put one in victory lane. But he was so close there, he was able to roll the top even without one last week, which he would admit usually struggles at, but he figured it out last week.
Yep. DJ Christie and Liam Martin round out the top five there. And then we switch to the crate sprint cars. Strickland's GMC crate sprints. Lucas Smith in the 49L wins it over Eric Gledhill and Brett Strafford. Jesse Costa fourth. And Alan Downey, another solid top five.
Yep. Yeah, Lucas Smith kind of pretty much dominated in that one. Definitely an awesome drive for him. Uh, Picked up the lead early. I forget who he got around. But big story in that race was AJ Lewis and Brett Stratford tied at the line for third. But then AJ ended up getting tossed. I don't know what for. Never did ask that this week, but I know AJ got kicked out in tech for something. So they ended up just giving it to Brett anyway, and then Brett got robbed of the front stretch podium, which was kind of a bummer. But yeah, it was a straight up tie at the line. The video can be argued, but yeah, like the transponder said, triple zeros.
Yeah, that's what I had, or that's the story I was hearing in the Maryville press box going into action on Saturday night. Race director Doug Leonard and Clinton Jeffries were breaking it down, and yeah, like if it's a tie on scoring, there's not much else you can do about it, right? Like I know, and video is so hard because of where it's not like a full on NASCAR broadcast where we have like 20,000 cameras. Like you only have maybe one or two, if at the most two views, right? So, and each of those can look very different based on what you're seeing. So,
Yeah. The one thing I want to mention on that is like sometimes the transponder line isn't directly under the starter stand too at some tracks. I forget how it is Rush Weekend, but that's another thing too. And yeah, that's I don't kind of like
yeah,
that a
I
little
think
bit.
at
I know some
Maryville, I
tracks
think
are
it's
off a
about a
bit.
foot in front, actually.
Yeah, so people got to think about that too when they're watching video. Yep. So that's something people got to think about.
Middleport Mechanical Thunderstocks were also in action. Uh, not really a surprise winner, but surprise based on where he started. Dave Bailey started 21st, and somehow in 20 laps finds himself in front of that pack. So got to give it up to Bailey, man. The guy's got it figured out. Ron Logie second, Mike Thorne third, Ryan Beagle fourth, and Christopher Hale fifth.
Yeah, lots of the usual suspects there, and a good run for Mike Thorne there as well. I know they were pumped to put the Burger Barn car on the podium. I saw some posts Friday night, and I know that felt good for him. So I was pumped for Mikey Thorne, who just got married recently to Laura Hughes, who's now Laura Thorne, I guess.
Congratulations to
Yeah,
Mikey.
so congrats to him on that, and congrats to him on the podium.
Yeah, good time for Mikey Thorne these days. The HRW Automotive Mini Stocks, Tyler LaFontaine again. Not really surprised. Surprised he came from 19th, but I guess nothing he does should surprise us anymore. That guy is just lights out. And Fabio Oliveira second, Dusty DeBoer third, Matt Newell fourth, and the 114 of Kyle Rothwell rebounds to finish inside the top five.
Yeah, so who's the new name in there? Matt Newell, I guess, huh? He's got wins before at
Yeah, Matty
Ohsweken, but
Newell.
Merrittville, that's kind of a newer name
He's
for the top five.
yeah,
I know he's won at Ohsweken.
Yeah, he hasn't been around Merrittville
Yeah,
as much, and it's not like he was somebody who started inside the top five and just managed his position. Like he started ninth, so Newell picked up 5 spots in the active, coming home with a top five. So you got to give credit where credit's due, especially for a new guy, a relatively new guy on the scene to end up inside the top five. Not one of the names we normally talk about this year, so give a call to Matt Newell. And moving over to Saturday's action at Merrittville Speedway, I thought, from my vantage point, calling the racing, it was one of the best nights of racing we've had all year long. Um, Incredibly clean, which I think everybody wanted to see and everybody needed to see. Um, it was, 5 classes in action. A lot of track prep. Got to give a lot of credit to the track staff who worked on that one during intermission, and even with the delay of working on um, working on that racetrack, we still were out of there at 10 o'clock. So a clean night, fast night from everybody. Big shout out to everybody at Maryville Speedway. At least from my vantage point, we put together a really good night of racing.
I wasn't there, but I just watched all the features. Didn't watch the heats, but I watched all the features just now on GeForce Lite. So I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. And yeah, we're gonna review them.
Yeah, it was. The features were, like I say, just really clean. Like that's the best way to describe it. We'll start with the main event, the Core Pack Merchandising 350 Modifieds. Matt Williamson gets another win. I think that was his 6th for the year at Merrittville. I might be wrong on that. I should remember. I wrote it in the press release, but can't remember that now. But Matt, Matt had to work for this one. Like it was a tight battle, especially about that midpoint in the race where there was 4 cars under a blanket. There was 3 of them chasing down Freddie Carlton, who was out in front early after getting by Luke Carlton, and Susie Williamson and Lindbergh were 3 wide at one point, trying to settle that second spot for who was going to run up on Freddie Carlton. And I think the best part of that battle was that even though they were battling 3 wide, they were still catching Freddie. That's just how fast and competitive Susie, Lindbergh, and Williamson were.
Yeah, 3 super fast guys there, and Freddie's no slouch as well. He's doing a good job out front. It was cool to see him again with his brother on front row of the feature there for a couple of the restarts. And yeah, Matt picked up the win again. And like you say, it was an awesome race there between them. Like right until Matty took the lead for good, and then he's kind of checked out a bit. But there was a solid 12 laps, I'd say, where they were all just 3 wide nonstop and clean, super clean, is like you say. Yeah, not too many door bars thrown, if any. And yeah, Merrittville has been awesome racing all year. There's no taking that away from it at all. No one even like the Corback merchandising, a couple of their cousins, like John's cousins that come up and talk to me that at the track a lot, even they tell me uh, like how much awesome the racing has been at Merrittville, and I've had lots of fans say that as well.
Yeah, and there's been some good rivalry racing too. Obviously, Friday night at Ransomville,
No doubt.
and another run in between Pete Bicknell, who brought it home 4th. Got to give a call to Pete Williamson, Susie Lindbergh, Bicknell, and Fred Carlton, your top 5 in the modifieds. But Pete and Williamson still getting into it, and Matt Williamson actually even throwing a little jab at Pete in victory lane. I don't know if you had a chance to hear those interviews as well, but
I
that
did miss Matt's victory lane.
yeah. So he to not to quote him directly, but to paraphrase, he kind of gave a little bar at Pete, saying a little jab at Pete, saying, I asked him about the racing with him, Susie, and Lindbergh, and he's like, "Oh, it's really great when you can race with guys that you respect, and he will give you this proper space to put on a good race, and aren't just going to door you." And I was like, all right. So I don't think this rivalry is going away anytime soon. Which, taking a brief look at the points standings, those two are gonna be major factors in who wins the track championship. Like Williamson now has a 6 point lead on Pete. Lindbergh is 8 points back, and Susie 14 back. That is your top four, and they are all right there in the 358 modifieds at Merrittville. So I don't know what's going to come with this Bicknell Williamson rivalry, but I'm sure it's making your days around the shop pretty interesting.
Oh no, I'm just usually in my own corner a little bit. You don't see Matt too much, that's for sure. And yeah, that doesn't really affect my work too much. I'm not going to be honest there, but yeah, I got. I'm staying out of that. That's all I got to say.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm just saying that I don't think we've heard the last of that situation. I don't think I
Well,
even need
definitely
to
not.
stir up any drama because I think they're stirring it up themselves plenty for all of us to talk about.
Yep.
Moving on to the Right Choice Auto and Leader Sportsman, our pal Cody McPherson. Another win in the seven. I believe that is win number 4 on the year for Cody. Wins it over Justin Sharp, James Friesen, Jay Mallory, and Trevor Wright. Gets a top 5. Good for Cody, of course, but also I'd give a call to Trevor Wright because that car got turned around running at the front of the pack last weekend, and he rebounds, started third, brought it home fifth. That's really good to see for the Wrights, and I know that you're pretty close with that family. So
Yeah, and he won his heat again. And yeah, I watched the feature, and he was doing a good job running all the different lines because the cushion. Back to you said the track prep and intermission, they did a great job, and you ain't kidding because the cushion was really awesome last week at Merrittville, and it held all the way around both corners, and that's what early leader Curtis Friesen was using, and Justin Sharper finished second. A lot of the cars were running. Even Cody went to the top when he got the lead. He took the lead on the bottom because he had to, because everyone was running the top because the cushion was so good, especially for their race. And yeah, Sharpie came home second again. He's always good when it's on the top. Cody was just able to squeak by. I can't remember yeah, I can't remember who Cody took the lead from. Was it Sharp or
I
Friesen?
believe it was Curtis Friesen actually. I believe
Yeah, because
the
he was
initial
leading it.
battle
Yeah,
was
he's doing good. Yeah,
McPherson and Sharp, and not tangled, but they definitely had a good battle for uh, several laps there, and they were both fighting for that top side, like you say. Like obviously, Sharpie wanted to be there.
yeah,
Cody seemed to be able to run both lines and find speed, but again, it was definitely a very top heavy track at Merrittville this week again. Which, not to say it was a 1 lane track, but you just if you had the momentum on the top side, you were definitely strongest, especially coming out of turn 2. Turn 4, I thought was a bit more equal, but we saw a lot of good runs generated from the top side, which also led to a lot of mistakes because I'm pretty sure Curtis Friesen ended up. There was a few guys actually, not just to point out Curtis, but I think there was a few guys who ended up jumping the cushion kind of off of turn 2 and dropping a ton of spots across all the different classes, and I think that's might have been what happened to Curtis Friesen because he was up inside the top 5 even after he dropped the lead, and then he brought it home. I think eighth was his final spot, but I think Nelson Mason, he was up inside the top 5 for a brief moment, and then I think he jumped it wide. I watched a few guys jump it, and yeah, tricky turn 2. Turn 2 has been the tricky part of the track, I'd say, in the last few weeks at Maryville, which has made for some good racing.
yeah. Well, as a guy who's jumped the cushion in turn two about a million times in my life, I can a lot of times it stays really good at the beginning, and then Matt's really good at turning off at a lot. But like sometimes it does get way too far, and it's like gets thinner as you go into the D because the back straightaway there is so curved. It's basically just one fluid corner all the way around to 3 there. So it's kind of easy to fall off there if you're not
Yeah,
paying super attention, and it takes a lot of throttle control and dragging the brake and kind of stuff to keep it hooked up because you've got so much bite going in. But a lot of times once you get to 2 there, it's falling off just a tiny bit, and it's not feeling as juicy and awesome as it was at the beginning. And then you got to feather it, and it's yeah, super easy to miss.
so is the temptation as a driver coming off of like a corner like turn 2 at Maryville, is the temptation that you want to get on the gas quicker and just sail it off and kind of use the rounded D shape to keep your momentum up, or is it more where guys are making the mistake is that they're almost too hesitant off the corner?
I think the best way to go for Merrittville, like uh, like Saturday night, like Matt's really good at like slide job in turn one, and then like kind of hooking the high side of the backstretch, and then
Mm-hmm.
hooking in, like he goes in high in three and then carves it down. But Saturday the cushion was going all the way around, so guys could hammer down pretty much all the way around three and four. Whereas one and two, it was falling off a little bit on the top of turn two. That's why Cody was able to take the lead on the bottom in the sportsman race over there.
Sure. Looking elsewhere on the night, Hoosier Stocks, no surprise, Dave Bailey gets it done again. He was in the middle of some 3, 4 wide battles deeper in the pack at the start of that one. Got some damage, still fought it off. Was able to get Jason Fontaine. It just seems like Bailey is able to put that car wherever he wants. Fontaine has a ton of speed, and I know he's going to break through and get a win here eventually. I just feel like that Fontaine and Murray actually they're both just bottom feeders. So if the top has any kind of uh, I don't even want to say it's the preferred line, but if it's strong on the top side, if there's guys who can run that top side, I think that's where Fontaine and Murray just they don't have the ability to move up and take away a line or two, without giving up the bottom line, which is where they're so good. So little bit of work to close that gap, a little bit, but it does seem like it's getting closer
Yeah,
in the Hoosier stocks. As much as I say, Dave Bailey's had this dominant season and goes back to back over the weekend, I still think there's something there. Something's closing up.
yeah, those guys put on a great race. I'd say Murray is more of a bottom feeder. There's more. I've seen Fontaine win some races on the top, especially at Humberstone for sure. But yeah, Murray's more of a bottom feeder. I'll give you that one for sure. But they put on a great race, three veterans, and I feel like when those three are battling, it's kind of like a movie you've seen 100 times at Merrittville or at all the tracks around, really, because they're three front runners and they're always up front battling.
Yeah, which when they're putting on as good a show as they are, then it's not exactly something to complain about. So I'm happy with it. And Josh Sliter, I feel like I don't want to say I was talking smack last week, but I was pretty down on the guy. It's noting that he spun twice, spun from the lead last week. That it just hasn't been Josh Slater's year. You were mentioning the new chassis, and finally Josh breaks through, puts it all together, and ends up getting the win over Brent Bigelow, Tyler Winger, Sean Iftati, and RJ Pitts. And I want to say he got the win, but one or two more laps, I think Brent might have got him because that was almost a side by side drag race to the stripe.
Yeah, yeah, you real. I've been talking smack to him every time I see him a little bit, old Joshy Slater, who's going to be a guest there on the show in just a couple minutes. But yeah, he's just been struggling a little bit with the Savage chassis, and me and him are good buddies, so I'm always poking at him a little bit, and he's poking at me. So probably do it a little bit on the show. And yeah, but he finally got it figured out. And like you say, Brent was coming. That was I'm pretty sure it was a caution-free race, right? And Josh started outside hammer, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna bust his balls a little bit when he comes on about his saying he missed the gear in victory lane. And I'm gonna say even when he wins, he's got a little bit of an excuse, but he did a good job, held Brent off. But caution would have made it interesting now that I watched the race. Yeah, but good job for him to pick up the win in the first one in his Savage chassis at Merrittville. He has one at Humberstone in it, but that's his first win. I think they might have won with it. I don't know. That might be the first Savage chassis win at Merrittville. We'll ask him though.
Yeah, we'll have to ask him about that. You definitely, you got to give a call to both the Hoosier Stock and the um, Rona Deutsch Modified Light Field for both of the series going flag to flag, back to back too. Like I didn't want to talk about
Yeah,
that when I was in the booth because I didn't want to set up a gong show for the sportsmen and the modifieds, but that was really impressive. In the past few weeks, we've seen incidents at multiple tracks, multiple different series, lots of torn up stuff. To go caution free in two series back to back, that's a really, really big deal. All the series were super clean. There was no real massive incidents, I would say, on Saturday night at Merrittville. So a big shout out to everybody who took care of their stuff and took care of their fellow drivers out there. And everybody raced clean, and we stayed green for the majority of the night. Got out of there pretty quick. So Big shout out to all of them, and of course, rounding out the action, Tyler LaFon as he goes back to back, wins it over Jay Moulton, Kenny Hare, Vincent Pagnotta, and John Lubeck. That was a green white checker finish, which I don't think anybody in the field has enough to stop Tyler LaFontaine on a 2 lap shootout when you put him right on your back bumper. But yeah, I give credit where credit's due. Jay Moulton did a good job to hang in there and make it a fight. But yeah, LaFontaine's just that 96T is just too good right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No matter who's driving it, as last weekend proved, like you said earlier, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if it wasn't for the caution, Molden probably would have won. I think, don't you? I would say. And then, but he got his lucky caution, and he did
Yeah,
his thing.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think that LaFonzi would have got there. I do think Moulton probably had that if it wasn't for the late caution. Even if he didn't, it would have been close at the line. I think Moulton would have been able to at least hold his line and make it a side by side run. And it's tough to say. You never know what would have happened, but
Yeah.
coulda, woulda, shoulda, man. That could have been real good. Before we get
When
to
you're,
some of our interviews
yeah.
here, I just wanted to touch on some. Oh, go ahead.
No, no, sorry. Oh, before we stop talking about Merrittville, I just wanted to give a shout out before to my buddy Dalton Slack because he came back in the 3RS, did a good job, finished ninth, picked up top 10, and it was good to see him back.
Yeah.
That was one thing I forgot to say in the mod.
Yeah, Dalton definitely had a great run representing the sponsors too. Transport Sales and Service night at Maryville, so glad to see him back out for that one. And yeah, like I said, it was just a really good night on Saturday. It was one of those nights where I think everybody left the track real happy. I think a lot of the drivers should be happy. Uh, yeah, it was a good night on Saturday. Hopefully, good momentum, good vibes keep rolling. We got some news at Ohsweken that broke today.
Yeah.
NASCAR star young phenom Christopher Bell is going to make an appearance at Ohsweken Speedway back-to-back nights, racing not only in the NASCAR Pinty's race on dirt, but he's also going to be driving a 360 sprint car in the Sprint Car Nationals and on Tuesday night's 360 support race for the Pinty Series.
Yep. So it was. I think it was known he was coming to run the sprint car for sure already, but now he's going to run the Pinty's 100, which is awesome too. So that's an extra car in that field as well. So I'm definitely interested to watch that race, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope we go before them. I know that. But yeah,
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
feel like you will, right? I feel like
yeah,
that
that's
has to be the
definitely got to
order of
be
events, right? That you guys will
that's what
be
I'm
kind
hoping
of the
anyway. Yeah,
openers for the
but
race.
I can't wait to be a part of that weekend. I know that. And Christopher's been here before, so then Stuart Friesen's going to run just the cast car, I think.
Mm-hmm.
NASCAR Pinty's car.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop calling it cast car. Old habits die hard. But yeah, and then who was the other one? Ken Schrader.
Yeah,
Kenny Schrader's going to run the Pinty's 100 as well.
yeah. So that's a lot of star power in that show. Somebody else who's going to be running the Pinty's 100, Dave Bailey, going to be in that race as well.
Yeah.
So that's going to be kind of cool to see how one of our Hoosier Stock guys stack up in the Pinty series as well on dirt. Obviously, he's been one of the dominant drivers this year, not only at Ohsweken, but pretty much wherever he's taken that fast 49. So uh, I'm excited for this event. I'm making my plans to camp Monday night and stay over, maybe even stay over on Tuesday
Sweet.
night as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm also going to get a chance to get up and close and personal, not on dirt, but I'm going to head to the NASCAR Pinty's race on Friday in Toronto, since that is a free fan day. So if you're going from the Southern Ontario, if you're a fan of the show and you're going, you can message at Southern Ontario Dirt Show on Facebook or over on our Twitter and Instagram pages as well at SODS_pod. And let me know you're going. Maybe we'll have like a little meetup or something if you're going on Friday. Since again, I think you get to watch practice for the IndyCar for free, and you get to watch full Pinty
Hmm.
Series race. So not dirt,
The Pinty's
not
race
an
is on
oval,
Friday this
but
year?
fun. Yeah, it's on Friday. It's not part of the Fan Festival Friday free day or whatever. Um, so I'm looking forward to that one. I'm just gonna send it.
Oh,
Maybe
because
jump
they
up.
usually run the feature Saturday, so I guess that must be different.
Yeah, they changed it. I'm not sure that there's all that much track on track action for Saturday. I haven't seen the full schedule of events, because I know some of the support series aren't coming. Like I don't think the Stadium Super Trucks are coming this year. I don't think the Indy Lights are coming this year either. I might be wrong on that, but um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are a couple changes to the traditional one, but we are getting a Pinty's race on Friday for the Honda Indy Toronto weekend, so I'm looking forward to
And
that.
free admission.
That and of course, yeah, free admission. That's the best part of it, right? So how many times you get to
No
see
doubt.
a NASCAR sanctioned race for free, right? So
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to that, and looking forward to our first guest. We're going to catch up with Josh Sliter now. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Want to support the Southern Ontario Dirt Show and help us expand our coverage across the province and Western New York? Well, your ad could be playing right here. Got a brand or business that deserves more attention? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com, to become a sponsor of the podcast. And now, let's get back to the show. All right, everybody. It's the Southern Ontario Dirt Show with Jonathon and Travis Cunningham, and we're joined by Josh Sliter, who found himself back in victory lane, especially after we were talking crap last week on the podcast, and he goes out and proves us wrong by getting back in the winner's circle. So, Josh, tell us about your run on Saturday night, and thanks for being on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me. We finally are starting to turn a corner, I think, with the new car. We struggled now for a year and a half, and Brent's been trying to migrate my setup to closer to his, and it's starting to work. So hopefully we can keep it going.
So I wanted to ask about that. So you got a new car you've been working on, and Travis has been kind of saying on the show that Brent's driving your old stuff. So when you say that you're migrating setups, are you taking new parts and pieces, or is it just how you have the old car set up that you're finally able to apply to your new chassis?
So we've been running a wider rear end, longer tubes, and this week we actually had an old rear end that was broken. We took the tubes off of that, and now we're the same length as the old one. Try and get more side bite into the car. I felt like I was struggling there, and then last week or 2 weeks ago, I don't know why the car just kept snapping around on me, and I just gave up at the end of the night.
Fair enough.
All right. So yeah, talk about your Savage chassis there, Joshy, and talk about the decision to do it and how much work it was to actually get it done and actually build your own car and all that stuff. And all who helped you.
So, so in the start of COVID, we were trying to get parts from the states, and everyone knows that was a pain. Getting anything across the border at that time, you're paying arm and a leg for shipping, and usually we would go across and get it ourselves, and then pay the tax, no duty or anything, right? Like, so we would do that. We couldn't get anything, so Dan Curving wanted to race mod lights again, and I said, well, let's build one. And once I said that, I thought to myself, well, if I'm building him a car, or if we're building him a car, I want a new one for myself because I don't know. I don't know if you know me. I know you know me, Travis. I just keep piling these things up, and
Mm-hmm.
more keep coming here. And so then I asked Rob Meisner if he wanted to do it, and he was 100% on board. And then he said the same thing. Well, if you're getting a car and Dan's getting a car, and we're all going in on this as partners, I want a car too. So then it just snowballed from there, and we're trying to evolve it the best we can and build the class locally, as well as there has been some interest in the states. We haven't really sold anything yet. The tire shortages are really backlogging everything. You can't put a car on the track without any tires.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much where we're at. We got a half of one on the jig right now, potentially sold at the end of the year, but we'll see how it goes.
You know, winning will help that.
How difficult is the process of developing, designing, and building your own chassis, especially in the mod lights?
So it it was a challenge at first. I mean, Rob Meisner has a lot of ideas that he wanted to try, so we kind of based it loosely off of our leader chassis, which I have 6 of them. So we had a bunch of different generations of that chassis that we looked at, and what we thought was the best from all of them, and tried to piece it together on ours. And then another challenge that we tried to overcome was weight wise. The leaders, we have to add so much lead, especially with Brent. He's tiny, so we tried to add bars just to make these cars heavier. So with me in my car, I don't need any lead to make minimum weight.
Hmm.
Whereas in my leader, I think I had 50 pounds.
So do you think a stiffer chassis though, because of all those extra stuff? What do you think about that?
Uh, I don't think that's an issue. I mean, we're like I said, the car was good at Humberstone every time we went there. It's just I've been struggling at Merrittville.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is, but I don't know if I just look over at my old car, which my cousin's driving, and think like that thing, I was basically unbeatable for years at Merrittville in that car. And is it mental? It could be. It very well could be. I'm not 100% sure. The car seems to handle fine, but then it's evil at points as well.
Oh, I was just gonna build off that point of you mentioned that it's mental. Like, how much more confidence do you have now after winning one?
Yeah.
I'm hoping
Yeah.
it translates to more. We got a couple big races coming up. The August long weekend. I think we're racing 3 nights in a row. 2 of the 3 nights are for elevated purses. So hopefully we can get. Hopefully we're on track now, and then start marching back to the front straightaway more often.
Yeah. So a lot of people know that like if it wasn't for the sliders, it wouldn't. I don't know if there'd be a mod light class. Like you put a lot of the cars on, help put a lot of cars on the track. Always have. I just talk about all the cars you got in your shop there because I can see the one over your shoulder definitely isn't your car.
We got Gavin Hills in the shop right now. Riley's is in the shop right now. Mine and Brent's were out this evening. They're washed, and Brent's is loaded up and ready for racing in 2 weeks. Mine's got to get the tires ground on it. Sean Iftati's and RJ Pitts are in the other trailer outside, and then my old car is sitting at my uncle's, which is just around the corner. And then Rob has Dan's and his at his house in Welland.
Nice.
Yeah. They used to all stay here. I know you've seen them.
How many is that? I stopped counting.
Uh, so I have, I think, 6. Dad actually owns Brent's, and then yeah, Rob and Dan, and Uncle Tim has one that hardly comes out. Uncle Sean and Dylan just sold theirs. So
So those guys kind of would say they own their own stuff though, like Rob for
yeah,
sure, right?
yeah. Rob and
Okay,
Dan are their
gotcha.
own. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Still one big family over there
Oh
though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You've been here. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
Well, I used to walk a dog in I think it was in Dylan's neighborhood, so it probably is close to your neighborhood too. One of my dog walking clients was there, so every once in a while I'd see like a mod light on the street, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on over there. I'm like, whose car is that? So it's definitely something you get used to walking around the streets of Port Colborne. I know you guys, Rick, definitely uh, store a lot of cars, but just tell people because I have been in love with the mod light class since I started working at Maryville. I think it's so much fun. I think those cars are so entertaining. It's the car that of all the race cars that I get to watch, the one I want to come and try driving most. I think. Uh, so just tell somebody who maybe
I'll
is
set it up. Set it up. I might know a guy who's got some.
Josh, I'm telling you, I'll turn 2 laps, probably be scared to death and pull into the pits, but I would love to try that one. That could be some fun podcast content and get a little bit of driving coaching from Travis and yourself. Maybe I could get around for a couple of good laps, but I just wanted to say to everybody who is maybe a fan of the bigger cars, the sportsmen, the modifieds, uh, give us a reason why people should support and give a bit more attention to the mod light class. Why is it? What do you find fun about it?
I just find that I could go anywhere. I've been basically all over the world with these things. I've raced in Australia, I've raced in Florida, I've raced. You can race in California. You can go anywhere in the states, basically. Coming up in October, there's a race in Texas for 10 grand to win. Florida this past February was 5 grand to win. Like it's just it's they're full blown race cars. They don't take up much room. Low maintenance. We're running pump gas. They're cheap to maintain. Um, Obviously, the initial cost, the initial cost is up there. They are a little bit cheaper than most other classes, but not much. But yeah, just upkeep. It's just we have the time to maintain all these cars. If we had 7 big cars, we would be missing the track every other week or whatever to try and get the cars ready. Like Brent was laughing today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Brent was laughing today when he said he turned that car around in 2 hours, and he said if he had his Sportsman, it's 2 hours just to wash the thing.
Yeah. See, that's what I love about the mod lights. They just seem like such a a great gateway into the sport, or a great, especially if you're coming out of the mini stocks. Maybe it's a great building block, and I want more people to be excited and embrace this class because I think it's one of the most entertaining cars to watch just turn a lap at Merrittville.
Yeah, it could be a bridge to anything. Travis is driven. I know you drove Chris Steele's at time,
One time, yeah.
and
Yeah.
like you could go anywhere from here, right? Like you're not locked into any particular class after driving one of these.
Yeah, and they're super hard to drive. Don't That's no doubt about that. I was terrible in one. No doubt about that. But I got one last question for Jess. Just tell us about like you've got a long family in racing. Uncle Sean's been racing forever, and then did Grandpa race before that? But you've got such a big family. So tell us about the whole Sliter clan.
So Uncle Sean has raced since I can remember. Grandpa started racing in the Mod Light class after Uncle Sean had a second car, and then he ended up with a third car, and then I started driving it, and then it just snowballed from there. It just went absolutely crazy. Uncle Tim raced Humberstone back in the 90s, and then he was gone for a while. He bought a boat and did that for a bit, and then I think the rest of us racing brought them back into it, and now his kids, Ryan is racing my old car, like I said, and then Ashton's racing go-karts. Uh, Dylan and Riley have been racing since they were little kids in go-karts, and then Dylan did the mini stock thing. We all kind of dabbled a little bit in the sprint cars, which and yeah, just everybody's been around the track since we were born, basically. So that's pretty much where it started.
That's awesome. It's a crazy racing family you got. I'm sure it's a lot to manage, but I got a couple more before I got to let you go here. But I wanted to ask you your time down in Florida racing at the start of the season. What was that? What was that like for you? I know you were on the podium, and I was looking over. It looks like you made the podium one time and on the IMCA Mod Light A class. So just tell us about driving in Florida and what the competition was like down there.
So we unloaded when I unloaded my car in Florida. I did one session of practice, and I knew we would be in the ballpark. So I had my other car there as well, so I hopped in that for a couple sessions, and then night one, the Wednesday night, they had a manufacturers race as well as a full racing program. So I was in the car basically all night. We went out for time trials, timed quick time out of everybody, 72 cars, I believe, and then finished second in the heat. Made every night down there through the heat race, and basically there was 8 heat races. So finishing second in the heat started me ninth, which you're pretty buried at that point in a race of that caliber, right? So it was good. I mean, the guy who won the 5,000 was the one I was side by side with in the heat race. So we were right there all week, and then got into a big wreck, and that could have been part of the problem with the car at the beginning of this year, just chasing things that were broke that we couldn't see. But it was good. We were quick right out of the box.
That's awesome. So do you have any more plans for going down to the States for the rest of the year?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think so. I think we're busy enough with Merrittville and our races at Humberstone that I don't know if we'll go down this year. We've talked about Florida next year. It's up in the air. We're doing a family vacation in March, so I don't know if we can swing 2 trips down within a couple weeks, but I'm sure gonna try. Wife might not be too happy with it, but I'll try and convince her.
I got one more because because I wanted to throw this in because Randy Drew, we haven't seen him this year, but he did pick up a win in Florida at East Bay in a Savage chassis. So talk about watching that Savage chassis pick up a win down in Florida. So pretty big win there.
Yeah, it was a good race. He was up front every night. He was in the car. Like I said, I was battling after the first week we were down there. I was battling issues from the wreck, and he was up front every night. Him and Dan, all the cars were set up the same. Mine, Rob's, and Dan's. And yeah, he just had it working there. He had the gearing right, and he was able to drive. I mean, I was also leading the first night there, and I spun myself out, which I've done probably about 5 times this year, which I'm not too happy
Oh yeah,
about.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Now that
yeah.
you
I
mention
think you
it,
made a comment as soon as you saw it. I think you sent me a message.
sounds about right.
I'm surprised Travis hasn't made a comment yet about your victory lane, blaming the gearing for why Brent was starting to reel you in there at the end.
Oh yeah. Even when you win, you got an excuse. I was gonna say that now that he mentions it.
Travis, you're my coach, bud. You're my coach.
Yeah, I know.
I still
Well, this
remember
is
the time that we were leading by probably a whole straightaway at Merrittville, and I won the race, and I got back to the pits, and you just started yelling at me, saying, "Man, you really got to start letting off and not beating these guys so bad. Nobody's gonna ever want to come back."
It's true. That's a good point too.
this is the same driver
You
coach
don't have
that
to worry about that these days.
this is the same driver coach that I just said I was going to ask for advice around in a mod light if I ever got the chance to drive one of your Savage chassis, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm not much of a mod light driver, so I don't know what kind of coach Travis is really at the end of the day here."
It's true.
All right, I'll get you out of here
Yeah.
on this one, Josh. I'm going to give you one opportunity to drive any car you want, any kind of race car in the world at any kind of racetrack. What's the combination? What's the pairing? Any kind of race car and racetrack in the.
I think I'd love to do a 410 at Knoxville up against the fence.
Oh my god, do you have the cojones for that? I don't know.
All right.
Do you have the
What's that?
cojones for that? Holy jeez. That place even scares Glenn
Hey,
Steyer.
if we leave it on the track, we leave it on the track. If we're not paying for it, not a cent
True,
invested.
true, true. That's a different mindset altogether, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
All right, awesome. Thanks for taking the time out, Josh. Hopefully, we'll be talking to you more often on Saturday nights and over at Humberstone as well throughout the year, and you can build on some of this confidence from getting back in the winner's circle in your own equipment. So, thanks for taking the time, Josh. Appreciate you joining the Southern Ontario Dirt Show.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, see you.
Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Want to support the Southern Ontario Dirt Show and help us expand our coverage across the province and Western New York? Well, your ad could be playing right here. Got a brand or business that deserves more attention? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com to become a sponsor of the podcast. And now, let's get back to the show. And we're back on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show. Jonathon Howe, Travis Cunningham, joined by J-Dubs himself. Justin Wright, a special guest for the show tonight. I think you're the second American driver we've had after Ryan Susi on the show. So a little bit of flavor from down south on the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So if I'm second behind Susi, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, so Justin, J-Dubs, the main reason we had you on here, you picked up a pretty big win at Utica-Rome this past week. I think it was your first win at Utica-Rome. You've got a few other wins in your career, but it's your first win in a while, I think. And tell us about the race. There's lots of heavy hitters in the field there, and tell us about the race.
Yeah, so I mean, this is our first year over to Utica-Rome. We finally got our open small block back, so we were able to travel around a little bit. My father wanted to go there instead of Outlaw just because it's the facility's top notch, new lights, great surface. And, the Friesens have had a hand with and getting that straightened out. It was a twin 20 race. Started pole on that, and I mean it was only 20 laps, but we were pretty good starting on the hammer, and car was way better, obviously, than it has been, and had a caution with 5 to go and fired off good and set sail, and we still got a little bit of work to do for 30 lappers, but like you said, the heavy hitters I mean it's a big deal to win over there. It's no joke. It's quite a stout field, and when you go and race with a weekly group and there's 4 or 5 guys in there that do it for a living, whether you start dead last or start on the pole to win means a lot. So
No doubt about it.
Yeah, and you join or you add Utica-Rome to some of the big time tracks that you've already won at. Obviously, way early in your career, you got a lot of experience at Ransomville. You've won at Outlaw, like you mentioned earlier. You also picked up a win at Land of Legend. So, of those kind of tracks on the American side, for some of the Canadian fans who maybe don't get over there as much, what has been your favorite place to run at of one of the tracks you've won?
that's a tough question. Probably harking back to the sportsman days of the old weed sport. Um, I would say it was probably the most fun to race on. But then again, the way Utica-Rome has been this year, and granted only racing there this year, but with that group of cars and the speeds of the place and the track surface and the lights, I mean, that's that's right up there. I mean, that's quite a facility of what we have here in the area, and that's no. I mean, what they've done with Weed Sport to turn that around has been awesome. But Utica, between what Brett Deo has done and Stewie's dad, it's I don't know. That's probably gonna take the top spot here since now.
Awesome.
So you mentioned Brett. You mentioned Brett Dio there. So that's a little bit different rule package than a lot of people are used to with the Super Dirt Car Series. So tell us about. You said open small block. Tell us a little bit about that. And then I know there's been controversy up here about the sail panels, but you guys just all run sail panels down there. So yeah, just tell us about what you got going on there at Utica-Rome with the Dio stuff.
Okay, yeah. For Deo's rule package, on his short track Super Series races, they run sail panels. Like weekly at Utica, we still run windows, but taller doors and quarters. Different tires, obviously, run American racers are a little bit softer sidewall. But the motor is the biggest thing. When I say an open small block, it's about the opposite of like your dirt spec small block that you guys have at Humberstone or Merrittville. Like it's pretty much anything goes. Um, it's a modern day late model motor just with a steel block instead of aluminum. So they're pretty
Yeah.
badass. They're a lot of fun to drive. I mean, they've got all the power you want or need without the heavy weight or the handling dynamics of a big block. So I mean, they're pretty. I don't know. They're the best of both worlds. There's no spec head rule. There's no rev box rule. It's just let her eat. So it's if anybody can get a chance to run one, I highly suggest it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it's just like a late model motor with a steel block, 'cause that's the perfect way to describe it. And I can't imagine, yeah, one of them in a center steer modified, as Ken Schrader calls them, must be pretty sweet to, because like you say, it's a lot lighter than the big block, but it's also making pretty much close to the same power.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's easier and now, and I'm just trying to race with those guys. It's definitely easier lap to lap to get them to do the same thing twice or get them to do what you have in your mind that you're trying to do. Sometimes the big block's hard to get it to understand. Now, granted, a lot of guys are good at it, but there's a lot of guys that aren't.
Yep.
So, what is it about the big block that makes it so much more of a challenge? Is it just that?
To me, the power of it isn't the most important thing or my biggest struggle. I think I'm a little smoother on the gas than some or maybe than I need to be. But to me, it's just that weight dynamic. If you take the block and it weighs an extra 105 pounds, and the way as high as it sits, it's a longer block, so it sits out farther. And then just strapping it between the two frame rails, that's your center of gravity's a little bit higher, and just the way the car moves and reacts is difficult to try to, well, I say, limit or rein that momentum and inertia that it creates on corner entry.
Cool. So you talk about trying to rein in the big block and stuff like that. Talk about your business you got going, Podium Suspension.
Yeah, so we've started dabbling in shocks here in the last 3 or 4 years, building Integra shocks out of the shop. That's been fun. Sometimes I mean, I do it. I'm not trying to be like you know, my number one job or anything. Just try to be able to work with some guys that want to try things. And, if somebody gets in a jam, needs things fixed during the week, um, Integra's been really good at helping me. And DJ up there in Michigan, who runs a shock room, and he's good to talk to as a friend of mine. But sometimes it's fun to do customer shocks, and it's fun to be able to have the assets and the resources to try and build what you think might work. But some weeks it's more of a curse than anything, that I should just try to lay my head down to sleep, and to lay my head down in bed at night and go to sleep and not think about something stupid that I probably shouldn't be touching, and try to go build
Yeah, I totally know what you mean there too.
it.
Fair enough.
Yep.
You mentioned some of your friends and helping some guys out. Talk to us, Justin, about some of your ties to Southern Ontario and some of the friends you keep on this side of the border.
Well, I mean, you know, remember running around with Travis and Maddie and BJ and all those guys back in our younger years, a decade ago in St. Catharines, going to Moose and Goose and doing stupid shit like that. But yeah,
Yeah. Don't forget Shane Pierce.
yeah, I
He's
can't
the one you.
forget the Penetrator, all those
Yeah.
guys in the whole community. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
Shane requested you. That's why you're here.
that's right. It's you guys got a really cool dynamic up there that the racing's a real big part of the community, and so whether or not you're into the racing vibe or into that aspect, like people know each other and know who you are, so it's a pretty tight knit group. I was taken aback when I first started hanging around with Maddie Williamson, just like how often you guys hang out together in the off season or during the week or during holidays and stuff. Where I live, that's you gotta travel 45 minutes before you find somebody else that you're friends with that races. And like, I guess it could be like it could be a curse. You guys always hang out with each other and get some bad blood or some bad racing week to week. I could see where that gets a little edgy, but yeah, there's a whole list of them, and been hanging around with you guys up there for 10 years, obviously before COVID. My girlfriend is from St. Catharines, engaged to her, so it definitely got some ties and a lot of great friendships there to the Southern Ontario area.
Yeah, you're pretty much an honorary Canadian at this point, no doubt about it. And
Yeah, for sure. We actually just hung up a flag here at our house. It's like a hybrid of the American flag and the Canadian flag, so we got the best of both worlds going.
Awesome.
that's awesome. Yeah. So the first time I ever heard of Justin Wright, I think it was a big block show at Ransomville. It was way back, quite a while ago now, but I'm pretty sure they said that night it was your first ever trip to Ransomville and you won the race. Is that true? And tell us that story or how that went. I know you won the race for sure that night. It
Yeah,
was the big block show guaranteed.
that was a sportsman. That was
Yeah,
'07.
that's when you won the Sportsman. Yeah.
Was a sportsman. Yeah, basically
First.
just it was a big block tour race. Working at the sweetener shop with Vic Coffee and Tim McCree. I don't know. It was a Wednesday or Thursday, and we got their cars loaded and they went. So I figured, talk to my dad, and like, what the hell, we might as well go too, and we did. I think we started up towards the front because it was a draw race. It was a midweek show. And I don't know. I liked running a little bit less gear than those guys were. I mean, in '07, the crates were kind of new. Some people still had open motor, two barrel motors, and I like running a little less gear, and the thing just worked good and pulled, and I was just riding around having fun, and ended up winning the thing. So
Yeah, that's when I first ever heard of you. That's just that one always sticks out in my mind with you.
yep.
And I talked to Travis briefly about you before we started up, and he mentioned that you got a big love for late models on top of some of the open wheel stuff. So just talk to us about what it is about late models that you enjoy so much, and do you have any plans for late model racing regularly in the future for yourself?
Answer the last part first. I mean, I've talked about it with some guys in the late model realm. Um, I like them so much that I don't know if I'd necessarily want to have one and race in some of the area tracks, being like Erie's or State Line. If I had one, I'd probably race it like every other weekend and drive the 4 hours down to Port Royal because that's a cool racetrack. But that, I don't know, that's still a pipe dream. But to answer the first part of the question, I mean, what I love about them is just, I don't know, independent front suspension, a swinging bird cage is not fixed, the four link, suspension system, all the cool stuff that you can put on a race car and get them to work like they should. And then if you can strap into them, and the harder you drive them, the better you are, the faster you go. I mean, as far as, I don't know, in my opinion, as far as dirt track racing, they're just the climax. They're the best thing going, and I think they get the best drivers. Those guys are crazy and finesse and drive hard and aggressive, like everything rolled into one. And I mean, they lack a lot of the downforce that some some other divisions have, and how they can get those cars to stick and race with each other and keep that kind of car control, and then be friends with one another to get up and down the road 120 nights a year is, I mean, it all rolls into what I think is what racing should be.
Yep. To stay on the late models, I'm pretty sure you did get to at least take T-Mac's backup car out, or maybe Vic's backup car. Tell us that.
Yeah, I ran one of Vic's backup cars. It was an old Victory Circle. That was 2010 or 2011. Just as a stunt working at the shop, they let me do it, and I had never raced anything other than a crate sportsman or a street stock, so that was quite an experience. To go from a crate car with 6,200 RPMs to rack and pinion steering, it's 4 times as fast with a motor that's you can turn 9,200 RPMs. So that was pretty wild, and they let me screw around with that, and just the local outlaw races. They didn't attract a lot of cars. I mean, I made the show, but it's not like there was a qualifier to get through or anything. So I got to ride around and race with a lot of my idols, and that was cool. And the second time around, years after, they let me run one of Vic's rocket cars at Utica, and that was just, I didn't know anything about it. That was just when we rolled in, they're like, I get the backup out, you're going to drive it. So that was really cool because I get to be a nervous person and get pretty anxious, and I didn't know anything about that. So I had to get pretty anxious in a short amount of time unhooking that thing and strapping into it.
That's a cool story. So like they more or less let you race it the second time?
Yeah, it was more set up and squared and load numbered around what they were running, and it was a better piece, and it could you could drive it and feel the things that they talk about, and it handled pretty well, and I didn't look like quite a putz riding around in that one. I missed the show that time in the rocket car, but I actually did pass a car too. That was a lot of fun.
Yes, cool though. Your name's still on the World of Outlaw late model start list though.
That's
Forever.
right. I tell people, I was telling guys out to Eldora and telling like Jack Liner and Dave Schilling, like there's a picture of me at Fonda. I'm getting lapped by Bloomquist for like the second time, but the way the picture looks, it looks like I'm rolling on the outside. I know what I'm doing, and he was in the way, but
That's awesome.
it's not exactly
That's
that.
awesome.
I love it.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this one. This is kind of our. I gotta come up with a nickname for it. I want to say the Corey LaJoy Memorial question because I know he always asks it on his NASCAR podcast. But I think it's a better question for some of the dirt guys because you guys have a lot more experience driving a lot of different cars. So I'm gonna give you one car and one racetrack anywhere in the world, any division to drive. One more time for the rest of your life. What's the car combination? Car and track combination.
Yeah, tough one for J-Dub because I just want to note that
Man.
he's a big race historian, like big history
Yeah,
guy.
I
Yeah.
should have wrote this to me earlier because like I'm all over. Man, that's, I don't know. That's not even fair for somebody.
Pick one. You can give us like a hypothetical one and like a dirt one. Give us two.
Okay, so if I could run Parnelli Jones's Silent Sam, the turbine car that he almost won with in the late '60s, if I could run that around Indy,
Wow, that's a
that'd be
good
tough
choice.
to top.
Yeah, no doubt. That's why I made sure Johnny asked you that question because that is awesome answer.
That's gonna
Yeah.
keep me awake at night thinking of like all the other ones, but probably the Granatelli turbine that Parnelli drove at Indy. I mean, Indy's the place. So it probably wouldn't even be a dirt car. And then I don't know if I had to pick like a European track and an old F1 car. That's a completely different. I mean, that'd probably be my number 2, but that's hard to narrow that down.
Give us that. Oh, you don't even want to
2
narrow it
then.
down. I know. I knew you'd be good at that.
All right, 2
Come on, just
then.
give us something.
Damn. I'd say Spa, Belgium. And
All right.
I don't know, maybe if I could get an Andretti's Lotus car.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the first like ground effect cars, right?
Yeah, like the ground
Yeah.
effects car. So 78 Andretti's
Yeah.
F1 title car. Yeah, probably that. That would be all right too. But if I could have Mario there, that would be the cherry on top.
All right. Well, maybe we'll just have to get Mario out to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, He's around. Like, he's not. I want to meet him. I want to talk to him before he gets any older. He's not that hard to find. I mean, he's still out there kicking and enjoying it. So I hope sometime our paths cross.
Well, if I run into him in Toronto this weekend at the Honda Indy, I'll make sure to let him know that I got somebody who wants to borrow his Formula One car.
Exactly. Like, people don't realize, like, how much he's tied to this, the Northeast, and how much racing he did, whether it was in Oswego or, Lebanon Valley. I got a lot of books here, and I mean, he's been around and he's raced a lot of places that some people didn't even know he was at. So that stuff's always cool.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have you back on to nerd out on some race car driver history, maybe in the off season. Good luck the rest of the year for you.
Totally agree.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, J-Dubs. Much appreciated, and good luck the rest of the way in 2022.
You bet, gents. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks, Justin.
See you guys.
And the checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe for future episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Southern Ontario Dirt Show. Have a question for the show? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.